She didn't just fire him. She humiliated him. In front of everyone. In front of people who respected him. And she did it with a smile on her face. But that quiet man in the greasy uniform, the one who walked out, without saying a single word, he wasn't who she thought he was. And the moment the truth came out, her entire world started falling apart piece by piece. This is a story about a man who lost everything. His wife, his rank, his career, and still showed up every single day with nothing but love for his little girl. This is a story about what happens when powerful people mistake silence for weakness. And this is a story that is going to stay with you long after this video ends. So don't go anywhere, because the ending, you won't see it coming. Marcus Webb grew up in Richmond, Virginia. Nothing fancy. His dad fixed cars in a small garage. His mom worked double shifts at a grocery store so they could keep the lights on. They didn't have much. But Marcus grew up with something that money can't buy. He understood that real strength doesn't need an audience. Real strength is quiet. At 18, he enlisted in the Navy. Not because he had no other choice. He actually had a partial college scholarship waiting for him. He chose the Navy because he believed in something bigger than himself. That was just Marcus. He trained hard, harder than most. Within a few years, he was deep into naval aviation, maintaining aircraft, running operations, leading a unit that worked in some of the most dangerous conditions imaginable. Open ocean, zero visibility. Lives depending on every decision made correctly. His unit didn't call him by his rank. They called him Steady, because no matter what was falling apart around him, engine failures, bad weather, emergencies at 2 a.m., Marcus Webb never lost his calm. He was the guy people called when things went wrong. He was the guy who always figured it out. By 34, Marcus had 2 commendations and a Distinguished Service Medal, a career that most people in that world would call exceptional, a future that looked solid. And then one rainy night, a truck ran a red light. His wife Sarah was driving home from her sister's house. She never made it. Marcus got the call at 11:47 p.m. Lily was 5 years old. If you have ever lost someone suddenly, if you have ever had your whole world change in a single phone call, you know that there are no words for that moment. There is no script for what comes next. You just have to keep breathing. And Marcus kept breathing, because Lily needed him to. He took an honorable discharge, left behind the rank, the medals, the career he had spent his entire adult life building, moved back to Richmond. And because aircraft were the only thing he had ever known how to work on, he took a job as a mechanic at Whitmore Aviation. He didn't tell anyone who he was, didn't mention the Navy, didn't bring up the medals or the missions or any of it. He just showed up. Every single day, did his work, came home to Lily. His supervisor, Doug, said it best. Marcus is the best mechanic I have ever seen in 25 years of doing this. And the most humble. That was Marcus. Head down, quiet, just doing the job. Claire Whitmore was not a bad person. Let's be clear about that. She took over her father's struggling 7-person repair shop at 28. Right after he passed away, 15 years later, Whitmore Aviation had over 200 employees, 3 full hangars, and major corporate contracts up and down the East Coast. She built that, from nothing, with her own hands, her own decisions, her own sacrifice. But here's the thing that happens to some people when they build something big. They start believing that because they have been right so many times, they cannot be wrong. And that is a dangerous place to live, because the moment you stop checking your decisions, the moment you stop asking questions, you start making mistakes you cannot take back. Claire had a habit of walking the floor unannounced. She liked the element of surprise, liked seeing how people performed under pressure. Her inner circle thought it was brilliant. Her employees thought it was exhausting. Nobody said that to her face, though, because that is what happens when you confuse authority with respect. She had a mental list of people she considered replaceable, quiet people, people who did not push back, people who, in her mind, could be removed without causing any trouble. Marcus was on that list, not because of his work. His record was spotless, but because he was quiet, and she had confused his quiet for weakness. That was her mistake, the biggest one she would ever make. It was a cold Tuesday morning. Marcus had dropped Lily off at school. She had a spelling test that day, and she had been nervous about it, so he quizzed her the whole drive over. He watched her walk through the school doors, took a breath, drove to work. He came in early. There was a corporate jet that needed a full inspection before a client flight the next morning. He got into it, deep inside the engine compartment, focused, doing what he did better than almost anyone. Claire walked in with 2 of her managers. Floor walk, looking for anything out of place. She found something. A tool cart left in the wrong section. Minor thing, but she wanted to know whose area it was. A 22-year-old mechanic named Tyler panicked. Said the first name he could think of, Marcus. Claire did not verify it, did not check the hangar logs, did not ask a single question. She had been looking to cut costs, and she had been looking for a reason. She thought she had found one. When word reached Reeves that Whitmore Aviation had just fired Marcus Webb, terminated him without cause, based on a false incident, Reeves did not let it go, because that is not who he was. He pulled Marcus's employment record, spotless. He checked the stated reason for termination, a tool cart. He cross-referenced the hangar logs. Marcus had been on the opposite side of the building. Reeves picked up the phone and called Marcus directly. And Marcus, calm as always, answered. 3 days after Marcus walked out of that hangar, a Navy helicopter landed in the parking lot of Whitmore Aviation. Claire was in a meeting with her senior team when her assistant knocked on the door and said there was a military delegation downstairs asking to speak with her. She assumed it was routine, probably something to do with the contract review. She fixed her hair, straightened her dress, and walked downstairs smiling. Commander Reeves was standing in the lobby in full dress uniform. 2 officers stood at his sides. He introduced himself. He was calm, professional, polite, and then he told her, clearly and without any drama, that the Department of Defense subcontract review had been suspended, pending a full investigation into Whitmore Aviation's employment practices and integrity standards. Claire's smile disappeared. Reeves handed her a document. She read it. Her face went the color of paper. The contract, the one worth millions, the one her CFO had been celebrating just 2 weeks ago, was gone, on hold, indefinitely. And the reason was printed clearly on the very first page. The wrongful termination of Marcus Webb, decorated naval veteran. Spotless employment record, fired under a false cause in front of his co-workers. The next 48 hours inside Whitmore Aviation were unlike anything that company had ever seen. Claire called an emergency meeting. Her legal team scrambled. She called Marcus personally and offered his job back, with a raise, with an apology, with whatever he needed. Marcus thanked her and declined. The story got out. It always does. Someone posted about it. A local news outlet picked it up. Then a bigger one. Then another. Local CO fires decorated. Navy veteran without cause loses multi-million-dollar federal contract. That headline ran for days. Corporate clients started calling, not to offer support, to ask questions. One of them, a private equity firm that had been with Whitmore for years, quietly moved their contract to a competitor without a single word of warning. Claire had built her empire one decision at a time, one firing at a time, and now one single moment. One moment where she did not check the facts, where she treated a quiet man like he was nothing, was pulling apart everything. she had spent 15 years putting together. And this is the part of the story where all of us need to stop and sit with something uncomfortable. How many times do we dismiss the quiet people around us? How many times do we mistake someone's patience for weakness? How many times do we make a fast decision about someone, a coworker, a neighbor, a stranger, without knowing a single real thing about who they are? Claire was not evil. She was careless. And sometimes being careless cost more than being cruel ever could. 2 weeks after being fired, Marcus Webb started his new role as a senior aviation systems consultant on a Navy civilian contractor program. Salary 3 times what he had been making. Full benefits. Meaningful work. Work that actually used everything he had spent his life building. Work that looked at him and said, "You belong here." On his first morning, he drove Lily to school. She talked the whole way, excited about a school play she had just been cast in. She was playing the lead. She kept asking him if he would come. He told her he would be in the front row. She jumped out of the car, waved at her friends, and disappeared through the school doors. Marcus sat in the car for a moment, just breathing, just quiet, and something in his chest, something that had been tight and heavy for a very long time, finally let go. He was not thinking about Claire Whitmore. He was not thinking about the contract or the helicopter or the headlines. He was thinking about Lily, about how she was going to come home that afternoon and talk for an hour straight, about dinner at the kitchen table, about her face when she told him everything about her day. That was always the mission. That was the only mission that ever truly mattered. Lily Webb's school play was on a Friday evening in November. Marcus was in the front row. He had taken the afternoon off. He was wearing a clean shirt, not a mechanic's jumpsuit, not a uniform, just a regular dad in a clean shirt, sitting in a plastic chair in a school auditorium, waiting for his daughter to walk on stage. When Lily stepped out under the spotlight and found his face in the crowd, she smiled so wide you could see it from the very back of the room. Marcus did not try to hold it together. Why would he? This man had lost his wife, walked away from his entire career, been publicly humiliated by someone who did not even bother to learn the truth. And he was still here, still in the front row, still the first face his daughter looked for. He let the tears come, because that moment was earned. Every early morning, every packed lunch, every late night doing math at the kitchen table, every day he showed up when the world gave him every reason to fall apart. It all led right here, to that smile, to that stage, to that little girl who had absolutely no idea how much her father had quietly given up, just to be sitting in that one chair. Some people spend their whole lives chasing power, chasing titles, chasing the kind of success that makes other people look at them differently. And there is nothing wrong with ambition, but Marcus Webb had already found the only thing that lasts, the only thing that actually means something when the noise of the world finally goes quiet. He had Lily. And nothing, not Claire Whitmore, not a termination slip, not any amount of public humiliation could ever take that from him. If this story moved something inside you, if you felt something when Marcus walked out of that hangar with his head down and his lunch bag in his hand, or when he sat in the dark listening to his daughter breathe, or when he cried in that front row, then you already know what kind of person you are. You are the kind of person who still believes that quiet strength matters, that showing up for the people you love, even when everything is working against you, is the most powerful thing a human being can do. And I want to keep making stories for people like you. If these stories mean something to you, if you want to be reminded, week after week, that goodness is still out there, that strength does not always look like power, that love is still the most unbreakable force in this world, then hit that subscribe button right now. Not for me. Do it for yourself. Do it because you deserve to have something in your feed that makes you feel something real. Do it because in a world full of noise, you deserve stories that actually matter. Subscribe and come back, because the next story is already waiting for you. And trust me, it hits just as hard as this one.